Duncan was constantly complaining. This was making the other little engines cross. "You've got nothing to complain about," huffed Peter Sam. "Pah! I've plenty to complain about," grumbled Duncan. "For starters, Rheneas takes too long to steam up, and I end up having to take his first train." The engines were fed up of Duncan. The truth was, Rheneas was slow to steam up. He was scheduled in at the works for a repair, but the way Duncan was talking, you would have thought Rheneas was doing it on purpose. When the day came for Rheneas to go for repair, Duncan complained even more. "Hey, one engine down, and you can bet I'll be the one doing your work as well as my own." "I bet. Now there's an idea," smirked Rheneas. "Careful, Rheneas," warned Rusty. "The thing controller may not approve." "Oh, this'll be harmless," said Rheneas. "I bet, Duncan, that for as long as I'm at the works, you won't be able to stop complaining." "Tuh, easy." "Oh, is it now? Hey, but what's in it for me?" "Well, if you do manage to stop complaining, I'll ask the workmen to paint me yellow when my repairs are completed." Duncan grinned. He liked the thought of that. "But if you do complain, you have to be painted red like me," finished Rheneas darkly. "What?" "Those are the stakes. So do you want to play?" Duncan was fiercely competitive. He didn't want to back down. "Enjoy being yellow," he said confidently, and he puffed away. "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" asked Rusty. "Do you think Duncan can stop complaining?" Rusty didn't need to think long. "No!" And the two engines laughed. On the first day of Rheneas' wager, Duncan was determined not to complain. "I'll show that silly Rheneas I won't complain," grumbled Duncan. "Besides, I dinna complain as much as the handle does." "That sounds like complaining to me," said Duncan's driver. "Pah! I'm a plain blunt engine, I speak as I find. It's not complaining, it's speaking my mind." The driver was not convinced. Luckily for Duncan, the day went well, and he didn't complain once. His trains ran smoothly, and he was on time. "Rheneas will be yellow in no time." But the next day, things changed. A long train of coal trucks had to be taken to the slate mines in the mountains. Duncan had to haul it alone. "This train will be too heavy for me to handle by myself," he fumed. "Is that complaining I hear?" teased Rusty. "Merely an observation," grunted Duncan. In the end, Duncan managed the train alone, albeit rather slowly. But this was just the start of these mere observations. Duncan wanted to complain about how hot it was, or about the rain, or about the passengers, or about the big engines, or about being overworked. But each time Duncan managed to catch himself and instead had to hold his tongue. "Careful, Duncan," reminded Peter Sam. "Otherwise it'll be straight to the painters with you." "What's the matter, Duncan? Seeing red?" Duncan thought it best to say nothing. Rusty would report to Rheneas at the works. "Well, my repair work is taking a little longer than expected," smiled Rheneas. "Duncan is sure to crack sooner or later." The little engines were enjoying the lack of complaining, but Duncan was struggling. He became very tense and on edge. At last he snapped. A herd of sheep had strayed onto the line. Duncan exploded. "How can I take any more. HC! Get out of my way! Move! Rheneas! Stupid sheep, stupid wager, stupid Rheneas, eh? Duncan was surprised to see Rheneas standing outside the works in a fresh coat of yellow paint. My goodness, laughed the Thing Controller. I've never seen you speechless before, Duncan. Fair's fair, Duncan, said Rheneas. Rusty told me you managed to hold off from complaining. So you win. I win? I win, cheered Duncan. Oh, you have no idea what a relief that is. And you won't believe how nice it's been to hear there's been no complaining on my railway, added the Thing Controller. While I understand your personality, Duncan, I hope you have learned a lesson from all this. Aye, sir, replied Duncan sheepishly. I don't expect miracles, but should you bombard us with your complaints again, be sure to understand I will not hesitate to have you painted red after all. Duncan just smiled innocently. Rheneas carried yellow for a short while. Passengers mistook him for Duncan. Such a well-mannered engine, they said. Rheneas and Rusty would laugh knowingly at each other. As for Duncan, he couldn't help himself. He returned to his usual complaining ways. As soon as the Thing Controller heard this, Duncan was ordered to the works. He is now, temporarily, painted red. He soon stopped complaining. Not because he'd learned his lesson as the little engines were to believe, but because Duncan didn't mind being painted red after all.